I don't got a reason to lie. They gave me the key to the sky, but I'd rather open my eyes, cause that's what'll keep me alive. Something that sees in my mind. Please do not fuck up my day. Everybody wanna hear.
Hi, I'm Nahx'Ryene and welcome to my channel. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge a few people that if it wasn't for them, this video would have been made. Firstly, my adoptive son, Luke. If it wasn't for him suggesting I talk about living with mental health, I don't think this would have started. If this is how I've managed to live with my mental illnesses. I would also like to acknowledge Lisa, my tiny sister, Bobby, one of my chosen brothers, Nadia, who's helping me manage my accounts and making sure I get everything basically uploaded and published on time for all of you lot. Kez, Luke's girlfriend, Sammy, my ex, that without any of their input and the questions they've asked, I don't think this video would ever come into play. So, this is my story. I thought this would be done much later. Nothing's better than a present. It's going to be done in several parts because I've lived quite a while. There's a lot of information that I could like to get across. And if they hadn't asked the right questions, then I wouldn't know what to say. I may shed a tear or two or several, because I had buried so much down that is the reason why I look like I can cope. I can't. Every day for me is a struggle, and without the human interaction, the support that I've got, don't get me wrong, it could be a bit more than what I'm getting now. I don't think I'd be here today. So, let's begin. I was born to two parents. My mum, whom I love dearly. She does mean the world to me, and she is one of the women that I aspire to be as great as. And her husband. My earliest memory would be when I was getting my nappy changed, and I looked up to see my mum's eyes. I could smell breast milk. I felt the warmth of her love radiating from not just her eyes, but from every pore in her body. The comfort she provided, the security she provided. I knew then that there was a bond there that can never be broken, no matter how testing I can be. Even to this day, I regret every bit of hurt I have ever given her, because hurting her is one of the last things I have ever intended. We'll probably talk about in another video. Tad bit too sensitive at the moment, or I might get to it later on in this one. Another early memory I've got would be in a park, being pushed in a buggy by my mum. And I remember seeing a red squirrel just darting across the field, across the grass. I remember it vividly, like it was just yesterday, and it's one of the things that I've held on to because I was happy, and I never ever want to let go of any happy memory, and I always make sure that everyone else remembers their happiest memories. Never forget them, because it's what can keep you together. I've got two siblings, one brother, one sister. Both are younger than me. So growing up being the eldest, a lot fell onto me to set an example. I was given too much responsibility way too soon. And unfortunately, it's not what any child asks for. And when you break from that responsibility or you slack off, you get made an example of to set an example for the children of others. And that should never happen. You should not be held responsible or to be made an example of as a punishment for future time to come. Because how is anyone going to learn that way? I was made to help with the housework from the age of 5, yet my siblings was starting later. So much that there was one time I was sweeping up dog hair off the carpet by instruction from my father, and I had to put my foot down. That's the funny thing. Every time I put my foot down, I'm either deemed as back chatting or just being irresponsible and rude. And it was actually, no, this is me asserting myself. So much, I actually demanded, why on earth am I the only one? This happened when I was about 8, mind you. Why am I the only one that is still doing the house chores and my siblings aren't when I started at their age? To the point I even said it was child slave labour, and that got him worked up. His response was, "You're the eldest, you have to set the example." And sorry, but that should never fall onto any child, regardless the position in the family hierarchy. And it's the reason why for a while I had a disregard for authoritative figures, because it just reminded me of that moment. And whenever we put a foot out of line and my father was present, his punishment was more severe than the punishment than we would get from our mum, because I wasn't afraid to stand my ground. I wasn't afraid to speak my mind. He felt that that's the way a parent should be. Bearing in mind that my parents are only 16 years older than me, they were young. He was irresponsible because he was a bit of a jack the lad. He thought he could get his way with. I've been punched in the back of the head by him and slapped hard across the face and then slapped hard across the thigh. And now whenever my mum done it, she was never as brutal. It would actually be a little tap to the point where it just shocks you. Because that's all a child needs, is a little shock. It doesn't need to be something so dramatic. He even used those sticks you would use to erect the plants with, those long green things. I'd get them across the knuckles, the back of the hand, the palm of the hand. I've had it across my cheek, I've had it across my back, I've had it across my thigh. And that did sting. Up until the point it became numb. When I say numb, it means that over time I became accustomed to it. That I built up a huge tolerance towards physical pain. Right now I could literally break my finger and I won't feel it. And it done more psychological damage as well, for the fact that I started to pretend to cry just to give him the satisfaction he still had that power over me, that he had that control. And I wish I didn't. I just wish I could have told him to leave off. But every time I used to assert myself, he would always do his power to put me down, to try and stump me. And because of that, I became socially anxious of wanting to meld with society, because I don't want to be seen as the aggressor, because aggression is literally not in my nature. Saying that, because of the whole acting, I wasn't being phased, I started to act more masculine. Growing up, I was very, very feminine. Playing games with my siblings, I took on the female role. With my brother, I played like the wife when we ever played couples. With my sister, we used to play mum and child. We also had held tea parties where we both being very feminine and enjoyed it, playing with the dolls, doing their hair. It was fun. I enjoyed it. Whenever I got ready for bed with my mum, I used to watch her shave, and that's how I learned how to shave, to be honest. Just watching her always went against the grain, and but getting ready for bed, I was looking forward to when I was wearing my night dress. My father would always try drumming into me it's a night shirt because he didn't like anything that was different. He always ridiculed cross dressers, transgenders, and so it made me feel a bit more closed off. He never emotionally connected with any of us. He did favour our sister more, and that doesn't play any part into my role. Just it, a parent should never have a favourite child. Should love every child as equally, but he always was more attached to her. But all I wanted was my father's affection, so I tried to live up to his expectations to the point where I gained a second personality, which grew a life of its own, his own. He still keeps me protected and safe, and he always kept me safe from him. So whenever we got punished, he was the one present taking it instead of me, because he believed no girl should have to suffer at the hands of anything like that. Yes, from a very early age, I knew I was a girl. I was living in a world trying to dictate to me that I wasn't. So much that I also had that parent that tried to drum into me that I wasn't a girl. I just wish my mum listened when I said I was born in the wrong body, that I never wanted to be a boy. I am and always will be my mum's girl. Oh, I miss wearing those night dresses. I always loved the clothes that the women wear, and I always dreamt that one day I'd wear this magnificent ball gown. But then the way he would ridicule anyone that's like that, it made me go into myself more and more. He didn't even like the fact that my attention would flip from one thing to another. I've got a varied interest, always had as a child growing up. Loved drawing since I was a kid. I loved horror movies. I loved fantasy stories and whatnot. Anything fantasy and horror related, yeah, was more for me. I enjoy computer programming. I love video games. I love comic books. And these were stuff that he is also interested in, and it was the only way he found a way to connect with me, because it benefited him, and he couldn't be bothered to show interest into anything else that I was interested in. And yet again, why should a child have to go through that? Why should a child only have to get affection from their parent if it fits into their criteria or narrative? Why can't a child just be loved for the person they are, can't be accepted for the interests they have? They don't have to have anything in common with any of the parents. That's what unconditional love is, isn't it? To him, a child cannot be stressed, cannot be depressed, because they haven't lived. What does living have to do with stress and depression? It's all down to the environment. It's all down to what's happening to you there and then. And what was happening to me there and then was sort of the fact I wasn't being listened to. Convincing everyone that I lie when I rarely did. The only time I lied was when my truths weren't being listened to or believed. One instance, I accidentally broke a shower curtain, and that was because I put my hand through a hole in it just to sort out the hot water so the water wasn't splashing everywhere. Don't get me wrong, this was like in my teen life, but this is just an example. And I told him exactly what happened, didn't believe it, and carried on and on and on. That eventually I just lied and said, yeah, you're right. I purposefully actually broke the shower curtain. What reason do I have for that? And yet that got believed. Sheer stupidity, seriously. And to prove a point that he would only believe a lie, I managed to get my brother to, and this was going back a few years, to own up to something I had done personally, and that was soaked a toilet roll in the toilet. So I said to my brother, convinced him, I should say, which I wish I don't regret per se, but it showed my brother exactly what our father was like. And so I said, go to him and say it was you that done it, because we all kept our mouth shut. As I said, with the whole acting, that was thanks to him, but I was able to use, I don't act through lies. I get, my brother, as I said, got to lie because they always knew that he would lie. But I also proved that they can't tell what is a lie truly. Or he, I should say. So my brother went and admitted that he'd done it, unbeknownst to them, both my parents. I used to sneak out the house a lot just so I could escape. Yes, it may have been on the landing, or I'd go down to the road just to walk up and down, just so I could feel some form of freedom and not imprisoned in that flat. Not nice. I would always put the door on the latch so I could get back in. Always made sure I was back in time before my mum woke up, because my mum was always up early. Yeah, I developed insomnia because of it. My attention flitting everywhere, as I said. It was the first time I had ADHD. But my parents wouldn't get me diagnosed. I had got diagnosed by a psychiatrist because I had one when I was in primary school. And it was off the books because I didn't want my parents knowing. It would worry my mum with everything that I was going through, with everything that I thought, especially since I wasn't being listened to. And the emotional and physical abuse I was getting from my father, I just couldn't handle anymore, and I could not tell anyone. And then there was a form of sexual abuse, and I believe there was more to the sexual abuse than I know. It's painful thinking about it. I may not feel physical pain, but I can feel emotional pain. And I'm doing everything in my power right now not to cry. Because all I ever want, I just want to be held by my mum again. But during this current climate with COVID, I don't want any harm coming to her. My mum has memory problems, and I know he plays it against her a lot. And it sickens me. It's again his form of control, and no one needs that kind of thing in their life. I never thought playing with my hair would stop me from crying. But no, it's just how someone could be like that, I do not know. They try and say it's an old fashioned way of thinking, but I know people from his generation and much older who have a lot more compassion than he does. And it's no longer an excuse. You cannot justify somebody's actions because they choose not to have that level of empathy that you think every human person would have. Don't get me wrong, do not get me wrong. He has tried, well, he believes he has tried, but I believe he could have done much more and much better. You cannot buy a child's affection. You can buy them everything that they ask for. It does not mean that that is love. That isn't love. That is trying to buy affection. You don't do that. He says he tried to be there for us, tried to be there for me, but I've never once seen it. And whenever I want to speak my mind, there would always be criticism that I was never good enough. And that's carried right on through my entire life, where I keep going after reassurance and approval from others just to make sure I'm doing things right. My stress and depression reflects on everything else for the fact that when I get in that state, personal hygiene and my levels of tidiness, because trust me, I'm extremely tidy. I am a neat freak to the level of I actually have OCD. So it can get to a point where something's completely messy, and because the anxiety from the OCD outweighs the anxiety from my depression and stress, I clean and I tidy. And for that sense of order externally and environmentally, it helps provide that stability in my own mind to the point it looks like I can look after myself, that I can cope. And it's anything far from. Can I cope with my mental illnesses? No. Can I hide them extremely well because it's what I'm used to doing, just so I don't get ridiculed or criticized from an overbearing parent? Yes. And no one needs to do that. Every child needs to be listened to. Just, it weighs on anyone, regardless of age. You could be a kid, you could be a teenager, you could be a full grown adult. When you get someone like that, that's always forever putting you down or having such an expectation so high that living up to it is going to exhaust you, going to physically and emotionally drain you. You just want to break free of it. You want to be rid of that person for good. But they cement themselves into a position where they want to be feared. And no child should fear their parents. A child should want to love their parent unconditionally with their unconditional love returned. I've tried so many times. I have tried to open up, try to express myself, and instead I get told to man up. I cannot man up. I am a woman, I am a girl, and I'm going to stay this way. I won't. I try my hardest to not let my mental illnesses define who I am by trying not to declare them, so I can be treated fairly and equal, because it's something I've never had. And now I understand why I will never be treated fairly and equally, because I wasn't being true to who I am. And now I'm being true to who I am. I get met with challenge after challenge, whether it's from my father or from something else. So let's say, yes, played games with my sister. Video games, I love playing video games. But again, everything just seems very materialistic coming from him. Just no compassion, no empathy. The sexual abuse was down to when my father stuck me in front of a porno with his best friend, the one that I always said was an uncle, because technically he was like an uncle. He over sexualized one few of the teachers that I've ever had in my life. He would always sexualize them, and I was disgusted. That is, doing it in front of children is a form of sexual abuse. It should never happen. It is not an example to set for anyone. No, it was not warranted. Just why? And now he tries to play that off as if it never happened because he chooses not to remember it, and I know he remembers it. I'm a manic depressant. I have bouts of states where I'm very euphoric, but majority of the time I'm extremely low, because all of these start coming flooding back, and all I want to do is just bury it and bury it and bury it. That so much of the time when I'm passionate or frustrated, I get interpreted as being aggressive. And that is probably down to him because all I've ever met from him was aggression. I enjoyed doing gymnastics, I enjoyed doing martial arts. I was never keen on sports, though I didn't mind playing basketball around us. Loved them. They were about the most fun games. I've also had a dabble in netball, I enjoyed that. I had only a very few friends, but then that is also because of my parents feared that being of mixed race, I would get bullied. Not for the fact that I was actually quite an absorbent child, that I was soaking in knowledge left, right, and centre, which may probably have belittled him at a point because he never listened in school, he never really learnt much. He admits that. But you don't then try and belittle someone for their intelligence just because you feel stupid. Again, and because of that, he set up high expectations. He expected me to go college, university. That in the long run, I started intentionally failing everything because I was sick and tired of living up to his expectations. I wanted to live my life. Growing up, I wanted to be a vet. I wanted to look after people and animals. I wanted to do everything in my power to help those that didn't get the help I wanted. But it goes unheard. I begged my mom so much that I didn't want to be a boy, to the point I also wished I was never born. My mum may never remember any of this, but I remember it as clear as day. And it's one of the reasons why I actually cry daily. It's one of the reasons why I'm constantly depressed. And it's one of the reasons why I constantly try hiding behind a boy's facade just so I could survive. And I can't do it anymore. I can't. It feels like it's going on too long and too late. I'm exhausted. For every day I'm met with prejudice left, right, and centre. When all I want to do is live my authentic self, my authentic life. If I could turn back time, I would literally be a bit more assertive with my mum and got her to help me transition at such an early age. But without the information and advice that wasn't around back then, it was difficult. I don't think my mum truly understood, or she didn't know where to turn. Growing up in Southeast London really was not helpful. It was a very white-black community. I didn't fit in anywhere. All I wanted to do was be happy. I just wanted to make my mum proud. I wish there was more proper information back then, like there is now, even though it's still very far and select. Now any of us can do is look for other transgenders for their advice and support. Don't settle to live up to someone else's expectations.